Video and photo backlogs can leave you overwhelmed, exhausted, and burnt out. We've been there, and our fears of outsourcing stopped us in the past. Can you find an editor as invested in your brand as you are? Will other photographers and filmmakers we network with look down on us for not editing everything on our own? That fear of outsourcing can be detrimental to your career. That's why we love our partnership with Wedditor. Their attention to details with not only our work, but also their care for their clients through all steps of the outsourcing process lets us fully step back from editing and focus on what we love, knowing our work is receiving the attention it needs. More than just editing, Wedditor is passionate about demystifying the outsourcing market. Follow Wedditor on Instagram at we_r_Wedditor for free educational tips, tools, and resources to guide you through the insanity of today's editing market. For an even deeper dive, follow Wedditor's blog at wedditor.com/outsourcing.
Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, built our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our first-hand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast.
Hello, We Got You podcast. Welcome to another episode. This week, we are sitting down with Sara, who is the project director at Wedditor, and we are going to be talking about current editing trends like trending LUTs, sound effects, VFX packs, and really just our thoughts on industry deliverables such as standard highlight film lengths, exporting verticals for Instagram instead of teaser trailers, and so much more. We're really going to get nitty-gritty with you this week, and we want to talk about some of these trending topics that honestly aren't really talked about. And we're going to share all of our favorite editing resources and tools with you. So just want to keep in mind before we get this episode going that these are, especially like when we're talking, obviously Sara from Wedditor has seen countless wedding films. We've seen hundreds of wedding films this year already. But we do want to state that these are our opinions. These are our perspectives, which I think is so healthy to share in this industry. Of course, Sara, you've seen so much. So you're coming at it from a much different perspective of actually seeing what these industry trends are. But especially like when I'm sharing my opinion or Hannah is sharing hers, we just want you to know that these are our perspectives based on our experiences and our opinions. I feel like that's like a tiny little asterisk disclaimer. Okay. And we'll go ahead and get started. So Sara, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be back. I love talking shop, so I'm very excited to do this today.
Yeah, no, we're so excited. Obviously, for everyone who is out there listening, if you've listened to our podcast episode before, you'll know that Wedditor is a fully remote post-production editing team. They have been working with me for years now. We started working together in 2020, and truly it has helped me elevate my work substantially. It has also helped me not quit my career from burnout, just being super realistic. But we don't want this episode to be focused at all on like sales. Of course, like if you have any questions, like please feel free to reach out. Like I'm very transparent about my journey outsourcing. But we would love for you, Sara, before we go into all of the hot topics, just to give a small introduction to yourself and the role that you play at Wedditor.
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, my name is Sara. I've been in the wedding film industry for over 10 years, heavily on the post-production side, but I do have filming experience. I was a wedding film editor for a very long time. I found Wedditor. I basically just found my calling. wedding. And I work as our project director. So I support our team of project managers. So when it comes to, joining our team, we're the ones that really get to know your films, you get to know your brand. We help do everything from QC to scheduling to, or in Emma's case, we want to go in different directions. We're just here to be complete post-production support.
That is so incredible. And thank you so much for sharing all that with us too. We'd love to know how many clients, with Wedditor, how many clients Wedditor is working with. Emma talked about how you've seen hundreds of wedding films and everything. So how many people are you guys working with? How many weddings too is Wedditor typically seeing per year? What are kind of your guys' stats as a business?
No, that's a great question. So I'd say it really depends on the year, but in any given active year, we work with anywhere between 60 to 80, what we call boutique filmmakers. So those are filmmakers shooting anywhere from 15 really up to about 40 films a year under their own. And then we also work with volume clients, and these are your kind of your regional, they do hundreds of weddings a year. So because we have such kind of a wide client base, I would say on the average, we're seeing anywhere from probably over 2,000 different weddings a year. So it's a lot. So this is an understatement. I've probably seen thousands and thousands of wedding films by this point in my life. So
that is insane. I watch my 10 to 15 a year and I'm like, ooh, that's a lot. I can't even imagine going through thousands of wedding videos. But I mean, obviously we just want to establish that moving forward, especially when we're talking about trends and we're talking about what we're seeing in the industry.
Yes.
We are coming from a perspective where you have literally you are watching what the industry is doing right now.
Yep.
And I think this is a really crucial conversation to have. I think a lot of things this year has been a really crazy year for everyone in the industry, photographers and filmmakers, wedding planners, right? We've really seen kind of a much slower year. And even on some ends, we've also seen for a lot of people a much busier year, right? But we can all in all say it's just been an odd year. And so I think even just honing back in on what are we seeing the industry doing? What are we seeing, especially with wedding videographers, lengths of films? We're seeing this push for social media edits, same day edits. I think let's just start with coloring. Yeah. I would love to know, Sara, are there any industry trends that you would say that you're seeing right now based upon the way that filmmakers are coloring their films?
For sure. So I wouldn't say we're moving away from bright and airy right now, but I will say I think we're returning to something that's maybe a little more neutral and definitely a little bit more saturated than what we're typically seeing. So for reference point, I think a lot of our clients that were really using the Illumi packs, I think a lot of them I've seen recently change it up and move closer to Gamut's How to Film Weddings Luxe Pack. I think there's a lot in there for everyone. I think they're really beautiful, neutral. I think they have that certain kind of luxurious softness, but in particular, the first one in that pack has an amount of saturation that I think people are kind of moving back towards. Another Gamut LUT series is the Runway Vows. In particular, their filmic glam LUT. That one I think I remember reading was inspired by the Kodak film stock, and I can definitely see it. There is more warmth and again, saturation in that pack in particular. Mm-hmm. So I think we're kind of going away from things that are maybe artificially kind of over brightened, a little bit overexposed and trendy, and doing those crazy shifts in green tones in particular. And we're kind of dialing it back and going with something a little bit more natural. We've been speaking with a lot of filmmakers, especially in the luxury market, that say that when they're talking with planners, they're also largely saying that they want, or their couples are looking for films that are a little bit more true to life and less kind of dramatic. I will say though, if you're still a Bright and Airy fan, I think the most slept on LUTs pack is from Maston Labs, their video Fuji LUT series. Those go from a full log profile up until a final grade. I think especially with photographers that have a photo aspect to their business, I think that gives a lot of them a really good match to their photo side. So if you haven't looked into them, I would definitely check it out. That's Maston Labs video, and in particular their Fuji pack I think is top notch. Really like it.
I love that. And I think it's really cool how the industry really goes in these ebbs and flows, because I remember even just 2-3 years ago at the very, very beginning of being I want to get in the luxury market. And then I'm seeing, my inspirations are all editing with this very bright, white, light and airy type of editing style. And I just remember being feeling so defeated where I was I don't feel my coloring is going to fit into the luxury market because I have this coloring that is much more saturated, that is much more, natural, earthy toned. And I had a really influential conversation with a luxury wedding photographer, essentially, who was like, there will be space for you and what you offer is unique and people love that. And so I remember like holding on to it, but being like, okay, this is really scary. Like hopefully people do resonate with this and want this type of coloring on their films. And now it's cool to kind of see like, yeah, we're not really seeing a lot of the super bright light, fine or white and
fine art.
airy
I think
type
that's
of
the term everyone associates with bright and airy is the fine art.
Yeah, it's like the fine art. We're not really, especially like for video per se. And again, like these are all just we're totally like grouping and looking at just kind of the outside perspective. But I will say Gamut is literally my favorite. By the time that this episode airs, definitely check out Gamut because I am actually in partnership with them right now to create an MK Films LUT pack, which will be very, very yeah. This is where I need like the drum sound effects in the podcast.
This is where you need the sound effects. Hit it.
Hit it. So I'm working in partnership with Gamut right now. It'll definitely be very, very natural, saturated, earthy tone type of edits. Anyways, all that to say, I think Gamut is like the place right now where everyone is finding their LUTs. And I love them because you're able to see so many different types of wedding filmmakers styles, right? I mean, like someone that I was really drawn to, the Marble LUTs by Sebastian. His LUTs are incredible. I think they're so beautiful. I just think it's really interesting seeing like the trends of like coloring throughout like this year and what we're really seeing happening. I would love to kind of jump into music, sound effects, and VFX. And would love to see, like, before I share my resources and where I find all the things, are you seeing any trends in the industry? I know that's like music, sound effects, and VFX. There's like a lot that goes into that. But like what kind of trends are you seeing right now in the wedding film world?
So definitely more people are leaning into sound effects for sure. With audio, I think that's really the major trend that I'm seeing. In terms of actual editing, the scale ups are here to stay. So when I say scale up, what I'm talking about is like that little zoom in effect that you do in post. I call it a scale up because you use the scaling tool to do it. And everyone's playing with that. I think if you're shooting a static shot, like ceremony, toast angles, and you want to give that video just a little oomph to it, especially if you've got shots around those clips that have a lot of motion, that little subtle, and I'm talking like maybe 100% to 103 push up, like very gentle for those kind of angles in longer films. I think it's trendy right now, but I think it really works. I think it's something that people can like just keep in their tool set. On the more extreme end, I think when you see some higher impact, shorter pieces where you want a little bit drama, the faster scale ups too are definitely like here to stay. I really like them. And I think a lot of these more kind of natural camera movement style transitions are kind of taking over what we used to see with some of the wild, like tilty, like extreme zoom ins. Like I think a lot of the over processed looking kind of transitions are out. And it's all about kind of things that could be done or achieved in camera, but doing it in post. So I definitely see a ton of that.
I totally think you're right when it comes to, and I've even seen that in my own work of, first off, with the scale ups, those have been like game changer for me using that over the last 2 years. I used to, always wonder, especially like in the luxury world, I'm like, how are they getting it to just like, I don't know, that scale up? I was like wondering, like, are they just doing that to every single clip? And just like adding it in post-production has always just gave it that like really high-end feel to it. And I do think it can be overused in terms of people can do it too fast and people can do it too much where they're scaling from like 100 to 120, right? And it's just like on a shot that needs to be slower. And so it's like it can be easily abused, but I think it's like I'm using it on like, oh gosh, honestly, like 80% of my footage, I'm using it. And it really varies of like, okay, maybe if it's a getting ready shot, it is going to be from like 100 scaling up to 103. Maybe if it's for like, we're in the middle of the hype dance floor, like party, I'm showing entertainers, then maybe that's going to scale from like 0 to 110 or 100 to 110. And so I think using it very intentionally, but that is like such a powerful tool because like I've even stopped really using, I've honestly stopped using a lot of quote unquote, like VFX, those types of transitions, like everything of what I found is to be very natural, right? It's either I'm doing the camera movement when I'm actually filming the wedding with my gimbal, or I'm handheld on the dance floor giving it movement, or I'm post-production adding the scale ups, but I'm no longer adding in all these VFX that I think we're seeing, even like with the light flares. I wouldn't say they're out, but I think even I've noticed for my own brand, I'm using them less and less, because especially as you move into the high-end luxury market, you're not seeing a lot of those kind of added in artificial transitions anymore. You're really seeing so much natural movement.
Yeah, I would agree. And to that point, when we're talking about lens flares, I definitely notice it's not a ton of filmmakers, but I say that there's more filmmakers experimenting with anamorphic lenses, and they give that such a distinct flare effect. So I am seeing clients like pop that on during open dancing more, or for certain portraits. I personally really love the way it looks. But that's definitely, I think, filmmakers are turning more to lenses now than they have in the past. It's been so much of a focus on camera bodies. I think now people are really being a little bit more intentional about what lenses they're using. Along that line, I think the past few years in films, especially in highlight films, there was more of like almost a 50-50 balance between slow motion and kind of normal speed, real-time clips. A lot of people are trending away from slow motion. I would say like I'm seeing a reduction of like 60 to 70% of highlight films are in real time or normal speed clips. And then it's very, very intentional and selective on what slow motion is done. I think as a lot of filmmakers want to be more authentic feeling in their film work, I think a lot of them are stepping away from like over processing their footage. So I'm definitely seeing more filmmakers say, hey, like, even if there's a little shake to it, leave it in. Don't try to stabilize it out. Like, just kind of leave it how it is and give it more of like that handheld authentic feel. I would also say going towards little photography, it's really trending in photography right now. And Hannah, I'm sure you can test to this, to do like the intentional motion blur still shots.
Yep.
I think we're going to see more and more filmmakers. I've already started to see it. I think a lot of them are going to follow suit and try to do more intentionally out of focus shots, a little bit more play with shutter speed and motion blur. I think that's definitely coming as well. And then in terms of, like we mentioned, those really like heavy, crunchy VFX packs, I think a lot of filmmakers that had used those in the past are trading those in for more stylized title templates. So we'll see more, I don't want to say cinematic, because again, what does that word really mean? But definitely titles that have, I would say, more commercial looking fonts, more creative fonts, like the way that the titles are displayed. Again, not doing any like crazy transitions where they like type right up, like in the old Final Cut 10 template. But I am seeing people wanting to get a little bit more creative with their titles. And I think too, that blends really nicely with more people doing things like Super 8 or Daddy Cam with the old like Sony camcorders. I think that just makes the edit feel a lot more intentional, and it kind of ties everything that we're using to create these films in a little nicer of a package. So definitely see titles coming up. And I would say that most of my filmmakers are grabbing those, I think, from Motion Array. At least that's where I'm seeing people get a lot of their title templates from.
Yeah, I've heard of Motion Array. I use obviously like Music Bed to find all my music. For any sound design, I'm using Soundstripe, and I'm also using Artlist.io. And then for any stock footage, I think stock footage is really interesting. I think that is something that, especially when I first started in my first few years, I was really turned off by stock footage, because I was like, no one uses stock footage. Well, then I found out like all my inspirations and everyone I know uses stock footage in some of their films, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I'm going to use it too. And I use it all the time in my wedding videos, especially for like, maybe if there's an area like I wasn't able to fly my drone, or if there's an area where I just need a little bit more B-roll, I will use all of my stock footage from Artlist.io. And it's amazing because you can get it in RAW, you can get it in log. So I'm able to manipulate the coloring exactly the way I want to, as opposed to finding something that's super baked in. Granted, I will say, if you want like the log footage, it's a pretty penny to get that type of information, but it's worth it. And again, especially if you are trying to really elevate your films and work more into the high-end luxury space, those type of things really can make a difference. But no, that's super cool to just like kind of hear the perspective of like sound design and VFX and how it's changing. And really what people are doing. Cause I think, the titles are something that even like I go personally back and forth on. I think like in the luxury market, I'm learning like more and more that like, not to put titles at the beginning of your films, but then it's like some people do. And I think again, it's like all personal preference, it's all opinions. But even like for me right now, it's like all I'm doing is putting my couple's name at the beginning of the film. Like I'm no longer adding my logo. My logo is something that I'll show at the end. And like what I'm delivering to the clients won't even have my logo on it. So it's interesting perspectives here.
Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with VidFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow.
Hi, photographer here. I just think it's so fun. It's so fun listening
Hannah
to you guys talk
is here
about
along
this.
for the ride.
I know. I'm just like wide-eyed, learning so much. But I just like I have so much respect for how much stuff you guys do. Even Emma, when you were listing like all the stuff that you get, like music from, stock footage, all that stuff, I was like, as photographers, we don't have to have nearly as many subscriptions. Like even just thinking about that, is insane to me. But it's very, very cool to get to like listen in. If there's anybody listening who's a photographer, congrats for making it this far. Like really happy you're here. But I just think that's so awesome. And I mean, this is a question that I have myself personally, but then even for like filmmakers who are maybe still like new to the industry or just kind of learning in the industry. Sarah, we'd love to know from like your perspective, for people who might not know or offer this yet, what is the difference between a highlight film and a feature film? And then how long do you typically see each of those being?
Ooh, okay, I love this question. So from our standards, we define anything that's between 3 minutes up to really 12 as a highlight film. I would say the vast majority of our clients, their happy place is between 6 to 8 minutes. I think if you're doing like a longer wedding weekend, a 10 to 12 minute highlight's not out of the question. But if you're just doing a single day shoot with kind of standard coverage, that can sometimes push you to have to use footage or toast you may not normally do on like a shorter highlight. But yeah, to answer that question, anywhere from 3 to 12 is really kind of highlight territory. A feature can mean a couple different things. Where we see most filmmakers use feature is a film that's somewhere generally between 20 to 40 minutes. And what this looks like is usually a montage of like prep, the first looks, usually to like one song from Music Bed or something like that. The ceremonies included, they include processionals, but they're montaged. And then usually I would say that ceremonies like somewhere of like 7 to 9 minutes. And that's like the ring exchange, the vows, things more in real time. And then maybe we go into another little montage of cocktail hour photo shoot and then a receptions montage where it's the same idea. We're kind of just getting a little bit of everything that happened. We're not necessarily seeing it in real time. Those can be really tough. And I think when you're speaking with couples where we see a lot of conflict, a lot of couples don't understand what that time limit really entails, especially if they're having like a shorter ceremony and maybe 1 or 2 people are giving toasts. They may think everything is going to be included in real time. In that case, I think, and if that's what you want to do as a filmmaker, I would use the term full film or full doc, where they understand that they're going to get that multicam cut of the ceremony, all of the reception events. You might still want to include montage of footage from other parts of the day. But that to me is that main distinction that is beneficial to make, is like a feature is still, in our opinion, what we see, an edited product. It's not as creatively edited as a highlight, but it's also not giving them everything that you shot that day.
Feature films are something I honestly don't offer a ton, or I don't sell a ton of them. And like, I probably should push them more. But I do think it is a really great way for your clients to just see a lot more from the wedding day. And I think I have always had the perspective of offering shorter, more powerful highlight films. I think a lot of filmmakers that I've done mentorships in the past, when they're first starting out, they're like, yeah, I'm like offering a 6-minute highlight film. And, it's like you're in your first year. And honestly, like I offer 6-minute highlight films and I'm 5 years in my business. And honestly, it's solely for the reason of I'm going to take the best of the best of the best footage and put it into 6 minutes than for me to offer a 10-minute film, make more money, and just feel like I'm throwing footage in there just to fill it, right? And especially when you're first starting, like it is so pivotal. Offer a shorter highlight film and make it be the best of the best so that you can continuously have it grow to be longer and longer and longer. But then you're never forced into feeling like you just have to add a bunch of filler footage in so that you can make it stretch, right? Like a lot of times it's like, I need to make this film stretch. And when I first started, I was doing 3-minute highlight films for such a long time. And then I finally got into 4-minute highlight films. And then I moved to 6, and I've sat at 6 for so long where I'm like, if you want longer, like we could add an extra minute or two, but then like at that point, like let's just bump you to a feature so that I can still keep a shorter highlight film with it being super powerful, super intentional, being the best of the best footage. And if they want something longer, okay, great. Like the feature film is going to be perfect for you.
I love what you're saying too about like when you mentioned pricing, because this is a big thing too, is we occasionally have clients that reach out to me and they ask about like they want to rework their packages, what should they be doing? And I think the trap a lot of filmmakers set up for themselves is they think that they can increase their prices by offering more time on the creative highlight, which is so challenging. And again, like you're saying, like it's so dependent on the wedding and the kind of footage that you got. I always push for filmmakers just to include less of like the additional like ceremony, reception stuff in a base package. And don't feel like you have to increase your highlight with every tier of package, offer the feature or include more of the things that you're already there getting anyway, or reels or something like that. Don't necessarily make it so that you're like forcing yourself to be more creatively drained, trying to make a product that you really like and want to give to them. It can get out of hand. I don't want to see people offering like a 4-minute in their base and then a 10-minute in their like top 3 tier package. Like it's going to be tough.
Yeah, there's so many other things that you can add aside from like extending the length of your highlight film. So moving past that, would love to kind of talk about just the difference of like horizontal teasers versus versus vertical edits. I think in my experience, I do both. For every wedding that I shoot at this point, especially being in the luxury market, every single wedding that I shoot, I'm creating vertical edits for. I'm creating 3 social media reels that are going out, that are going to the planner, that are going to the couple. Typically, I've got one really cool reel that is like designed for the couple. That is something that they are just going to gush over. It's going to have a lot of their portraits. It's going to be something that they get to be really excited about. And then the other 2 reels are really designed to have a focus on the design, right? Some element of the venue, of the design of the reception or cocktail hour or guest experience or hype or party, something that I can then send to the planner and the vendors that they're going to get really excited about. Those reels are what I am using every single wedding, whether it's being sometimes posted on my social, sometimes it's literally just for me to send to the vendors. Maybe I'm like, hey, this wedding was an insanely beautiful wedding, but it is not my exact showstopper portfolio film that I'm going to post to my Instagram, but I still really want to build an insane relationship with these vendors. So I'm creating it for them. Whereas then you've got your horizontal teasers, which I do offer as an add-on in my film collections that I do have couples still add. And I am creating the horizontal teasers for them. I still post to my Instagram. Like if I'm sharing a teaser, I like still post it. I just flip it and flip the orientation because I think there is, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this too, Sarah. I think there is a really important difference between a teaser and a vertical edit. And while I see our industry really shifting to more vertical edits, I think especially when you're filming these grand, big production weddings, or you're filming in a really epic location with your couple, and like those wides are everything, that when you cut everything vertically, you just lose so much of the impact of the space you are in. And so I think that there's still importance for both. But the biggest change is that we're seeing importance for vertical edits now. It's not just the teaser trailers. So I'd love to hear, I don't know, just like your thoughts and opinions on that.
I completely agree. Until we are mounting our TVs vertically, there's always going to be a place for the horizontal teasers. I'm with you. I think filmmakers, in my opinion, they obviously, just because of the way the framing of a wide, I think their best work is always usually in those wide shots. I think they're beautiful. And I think it's just, it makes brands look more expensive whenever I watch the teasers horizontally. But that said, I think a lot of that, like now with being able to like turn the phone, or more people are understanding to turn their phone a certain way, there's a little less resistance to that. But having said that, I agree, like vertical is not going anywhere, especially on social, especially when you're talking about with like these little reels of details and things like that, which I honestly think is so smart. And I think it's smart to do for your couples too. I mean, imagine the decision fatigue you go through as a bride, and just to be able to see like all the decisions you made kind of like back to back and how they tie together would be so cool. But again, brides are on Insta. That's what they're using. That's how a lot of our filmmakers are finding clients now. So I do think it's important to get on the reel, get seen, make sure the visibility for your brand is up. So I think I agree that kind of creating films like vertical and horizontal, right? Being more cinematic, more kind of story-esque with the horizontal teasers, but then not being afraid to be a little bit more punchy, maybe even a little bit less edited than the horizontal, and just really kind of showing off coverage of the day is crucial. And I think a lot of people that were hesitant to do vertical, I think now is the time. I will say, just turn your camera to the side. I know it's really awkward to do and you're not going to get the motions that you like, but seriously, if you're getting coverage of something, turn your camera and make sure you're getting that composition in camera, because it is really challenging to recomp things vertically. And I just see it's easy. It's easy to forget to do on the wedding day too, but definitely just start kind of trying to do that as you can.
Yeah, definitely. It's again, like seriously so fun listening to you guys talk all about this and like kind of being in the video side of the shop talk. So I'm honored to be here, but like, that's so cool. Just like hearing all those differences, and it's fun because I feel like I notice those things on social media, like whether that's horizontal versus vertical, like even like what I feel like is pulling my attention more. So it's really, really fascinating to hear. And seriously, we're just so grateful, Sarah, that you're able to hop on today and kind of just like share all of those trends, all the ins, everything that you are seeing right now in the wedding industry. And hopefully all the videographers out there listening have kind of been able to pull something from this episode and can kind of like have that and use that to elevate your films for this year. We'd love to, before we close the episode, know like Instagram handle, website, everything, kind of contact for those listening to be able to reach out and work with Wedditor in the future.
Of course, our website is wedditor.com. That's where you're going to find our contact list if you're interested in partnering. And then Instagram is Insta/we_r_Wedditor. And I do try to post there more frequently than I have in the past. It's something I need to step up my social game. But we're definitely on there and active. So definitely give us a follow.
That is where I feel like everybody's at too. So no worries there. But yeah, if you guys are not following them yet, make sure that you do. If you've been thinking about working with them, go and reach out and everything. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to jump on here and share this with everyone. We appreciate you more than you know. For everybody listening, we'll see you guys next week on the We Got You podcast. Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.